Welcome everybody to another acoustic guitar talk live stream. I hope you are all well wherever you are listening from, whether it's morning like it is for me or afternoon or evening. It's great to have you here. We are going to have a great stream today with a very good friend of mine. We are live, hopefully, on YouTube and Facebook. I believe we are, as in that has all worked and connected up. So you may be watching from either of those platforms. Do let us know if you like where you are in the chat. Say hello. I will be keeping an eye on the chat. So if you've got any questions during our stream today, feel free by all means to post in the chat and we'll do our best to answer any questions that you might have. So today we're going to be talking about rhythm guitar, and that is what we do 80-90% of the time. Even if you consider yourself to be a lead guitarist, most times you're going to be playing rhythm guitar, and we want to do things that are a little bit more interesting than simply just playing open chords, bar chords. Of course, they have their place. We need to be able to do that. That's suited at times for sure. But we want to be able to, make things a little bit more interesting for ourselves and, within the context of which you might be playing, whether that's on your own or you are, playing in some sort of a band, whether it be a duo or a full band. Okay, so I have actually, what we're going to be talking about specifically is adding riffs and fills in between the chords that you play. So adding sort of lead guitar parts or lead guitar elements to your chord progressions, your rhythm guitar, to make things a little bit more interesting. And today I have a very good friend of mine who's going to be perfect for this topic. He's a professional guitar player, been playing for, or certainly has 35 plus years of experience performing live in recording studios and gigs and so forth, touring. He's currently has a teaching school that he owns and runs in New Haven in USA. I think that's Connecticut, if I am correct. And performs still as well as teaching. He's also the author of rhythmguitarlessons.net, and which is a great site, all things rhythm guitar. So I'm going to bring in my good friend Mark Turco. How are you doing there, Mark?
I am fantastic. How are you doing this morning for you?
Yes, this morning for me, just gone 10 o'clock. So pretty, civilized hour, which is good. Sometimes being a guest on other people's streams, I have been sitting here at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's kind of what you get when you're in Australia. And evening for you, I believe.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's 7 p.m. on a Friday night, so it's a good time to play guitar. It's a good time to play guitar.
That's right. At our age, at this stage in life, Mark, a good Friday night sitting home with the guitar, isn't it?
That's fine with me. That's fine with me.
Oh man, that's cool. All right, awesome. Well, I'm glad you are here. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time. So as I said in the introduction, we're going to be talking specifically about adding riffs and fills into our chord progressions. So perhaps to start, we can kind of define what that is. Some people might be sitting here thinking, what the hell are you talking about? So can you kind of in a nutshell, or however you like, sort of give us your view on what we mean by, adding riffs and fills, playing, riffs and fills in between the chords of a progression?
Sure. I think in my own personal definition, it's that other stuff that happens when you're not strumming a chord. Basically, that's it. I mean, like in the super simplest term, if you're a guitar player and somebody's just not strumming chords straight through until the next chord and there's other stuff going on, that's exactly what we're talking about. And it can be a lot of different things. It can be single notes. You could be playing two notes. You could be playing triads. You can be actually playing full chords in between, rapidly in between the change. But basically, if you just don't hear straight strumming until the next chord and there's other stuff going on, that's what we're talking about.
Okay, cool. So could you give us perhaps a basic demo of that?
Sure, sure, absolutely. So, I mean, if we were just going to go simply from like an A minor to a D minor chord, and we were just going to play it, 4 beats each. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Instead of just letting that carry through or ring totally, you could simply just add some notes, single notes. I'll do single notes. Mistakes aside, that's the point I'm trying to make. So that's stuff that you hear all the time going on in types of rhythms, and it creates variety. It makes it more interesting as to what's going on. So that's sort of the gist of what I feel as though what it is. I mean, I'm sure you probably agree too.
Yeah, I agree. It's basically it's not a specific. I mean, for to begin, riffs and fills for anyone who might be confused, it's one and the same. If we say,
Yes.
if, the riff is filling the gap between the chords. So,
Yeah.
in case anyone is wondering, hang on, what's a riff, what's a fill? It's one and the same. Often these are referred to as rhythm fills, or at least in my experience, I always hear them referred to as rhythm fills because I guess you're using riffs to fill between chords, and you're playing rhythm and so forth. So you're not sort of going full out playing lead guitar, of course. You're still holding up the rhythm end, whatever context in which you're playing, but yeah, you're certainly adding these lead guitar parts in between, and it could be, as you said, playing thirds, playing sixths. It could be pentatonic stuff. It could be triads, as you said. It could be anything, as long as, of course, it's in key. that
Well,
that
that's
that
the thing.
that goes
That's the
without saying, but let's say that anyway.
Yes.
um,
Well, but I think that's where a lot of people get confused. You just can't do you can do anything you want as long as it's in key. And then the question is like, well, how do I know if it's in key or not? I guess that's the big question. Maybe that's probably where, because it's really a simple concept. You could play anything that you want. You could play single notes. You could play 2 notes at a time. Just as long as those 2 notes that you're playing are in key, you could do anything you want to do. We could do the same for 3 notes, 4 notes, even 5 notes. It doesn't really matter. But I think the big question is how do I know if it's in key or not? So that's where you need to know several things. But you can get away with just knowing one of the several things to get you started. So either you need to know a scale, at least just one that's in the correct key, or you need to know triads across your, meaning 3-string, 3-note chords across your guitar. So one or the other. If you know both, it's going to be better. But one or the other will definitely get you started, because you could play 2 out of the 3 notes out of your triad, and now you're playing 2 notes, or you could just pick 2 notes out of a scale that and that'll be fine too, because basically you are playing 2 of the 3 notes out of a triad anyway. Some triad somewhere, as long as you're playing in the correct scale. So, would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. And let's perhaps then, Mark, um, let's say I'm on this stream. I haven't done anything like this before. Where would you recommend to start? So you talk about the pentatonic would be probably where you're
Yeah,
going to
let's
go.
yeah,
Of
let's start with the minor pentatonic position 1, because that's very easy to learn. Some
Mhm.
people learn the major, but the minor is that box pattern everybody always talks about.
Yes.
So, in my opinion, that is the simpler of the 2 patterns. So, as long as you know that one, so let's make the assumption that you do know that one.
Hmm.
So,
Yep.
if we're going to be playing anything in a particular key, we'll pick, like I did before, the key of A minor.
Mm-hmm.
So that minor pentatonic box pattern will happen on the 5th fret. So as long as you know that pattern, and that if we play it on the 5th fret, we're playing our minor pentatonic in the key of A minor. So it doesn't matter what your chord progression is. As long as the whole chord progression is in the key of A minor, you can use any one of those notes. That's all that I did before when I did my quick little demonstration. But to keep it super, super, super simple, you can easily just take the 2 middle strings or the 2 skinny strings or your 2 thick strings and just use those 2 strings only. Don't think you have to use all of it, because you don't have enough time anyways to use all of the notes in the scale, because there is timing involved and you need to get back to playing with chords. But you could simply just pick 4 notes on 2 strings, and you can just alternate between your chords and any combination of those 4 notes. That's a super, super, super easy way to get started. That makes sense to you?
Yes, it does. I'm just finding my way back on here.
There you go. There you are.
There I am. They've they've changed everything in Restream. It's like, where is everything now? You know, when you just get used to something, you know, they're about to change it, and then you're like, ah. So yeah, but that does make complete sense to me. There we go.
As far as simplicity goes, I don't know how to explain it any more simply than that.
Yep.
You need to know some chords, and you need to know that one scale, but you don't have to take on that whole scale all at once. You take tiny little sections of it, because you don't have enough time to usually play more than just a little bit, just a few notes, really.
Yep. Well, we've got a question here, Mark, in the comments, and just asking, can Mark show what he's describing? So exactly that process you just spoke about. Can you just walk us through that? So we're
absolutely. So here's our A minor chord, 5-string A minor chord, first position. Here's my A minor pentatonic scale, and all I'm going to do is use the middle 2 strings. There's only 4 notes. Those are my choice of notes that I'm going to play. So I'm going to strum the A minor chord. I'm going to play a combination of only those 4 notes in time, so I can get to the D minor chord next. So it'll be that's it. It's really that simple. If I wanted to add more variety, I could actually just change the pair of strings that I'm on. If you just think of it in terms of like, I'm only going to worry about this pair of strings, 2 strings at a time, you don't have to worry about, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? If you just focus in just on 2 strings at a time, it actually makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, I agree. It's yeah, if you restrict yourself, then you take out, you know, the thought of having to, where do I play, and overwhelming yourself and thinking too much, and then just, you know, so definitely. There's a good question here, which I'll bring up as well from the chat, and it is Andy, I think that is Andy Fitzgerald. So can you use the minor pentatonic scale in a major key, or must you use the major pentatonic when you're in a major key? So it's actually both, right? But maybe you want to address that there, Mark, or you want me to?
Well, why don't we both address it? Because your explanation might connect with somebody, and my explanation might connect with somebody else.
Yeah, that makes complete sense to me. So All right. Well, what I would say about that, you can use the mic. So everything Mark has suggested here with the minor pentatonic scale can use over a minor chord or in a minor key. If you take any of those riffs that you come up with and you move them down 3 frets, now you got A major, right? So this is the great thing about pentatonic, period, but in this context with fills, is that anything minor. So if I'm playing pattern 1 in A minor, let me just get myself on a full screen here. So if I am playing A minor pentatonic here, and anything, so our little rhythm fill over A minor, if I'm in the key of A major, I can use all those ideas. I've just got to move them down 3 frets, okay? And it converts it into major. So don't worry about why that is at this point. It's just how it works. Let's just say that, okay? So anything that is in a minor key, you move it down 3 frets. You may have to possibly alter maybe the note you finish on. You know, you might need to adapt it a little bit. Not necessarily the exact riff will work. Most times it can, but certainly, you know, it's just a matter of, you know, finishing on one other note, you know, a different note other than perhaps the one you did in the minor context. So this is great, right? Because basically every time you learn a riff in the minor pentatonic scale, you've learned a major riff too. So you double up straight away with just learning one riff. Now, Mark, perhaps, yeah, do you want to give your sort of take on that, if you've got something a little bit different or a different way of showing it?
Yes. So totally agree, especially the fact that you said if you learned one pattern, you actually learned one of the patterns of the corresponding major. So let's just say you learned pattern 1 of the minor pentatonic. That means you already learned pattern 5 of the major pentatonic. So there's 5 different patterns and they all connect together, but they share the same patterns. So unfortunately, the standard way of explaining it is pentatonic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They use a numbering system. And then when you go to the major pentatonic, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but the numbers don't line up. So major pentatonic 1 is minor pentatonic 2. It's just offset by 1. So what I do when I explain this to my students, first of all, you need to learn all 5 pentatonics and how they connect together, okay? And because they share the same patterns. So what I actually do with my students is I actually got rid of the numbers, and I actually, while you were talking, I was writing something down. Hopefully you can see it on the screen. I assigned colors to them. So the minor pentatonic first position is the yellow pattern. So the yellow pattern is the yellow pattern. That's the fingering for it. That's always going to be the fingering for it. And then I call the next one the red pattern, the green pattern, the blue pattern, the orange pattern. So now what happens is the fingerings will always stay the same for them, except the order in which we do them in will always be the same. But the very first one that we do is actually going to be different. So excuse me while I write this down really quick. So now if you take a look, the major pentatonic starts with the red pattern. Then it goes to green, then it goes to blue, then it goes to orange, and then it goes to yellow. So that's the way I try to explain it to my students. So all of the patterns are shared. It's just our starting point changes. So when you learn one, you're learning one for the other one as well. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's very cool because it
I
is.
feel as though that the numbers get in the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when the numbers get in the way, people are confused. Well, wait, this is one, but it's one in this one, but it's five in that one, and it's but if and so like if you color code them, okay. So I
Mm.
hand out like a little chart, and it
Yep.
has the major pentatonics instead of the background of the block diagram that looks like a chord diagram, but it's a scale. So instead
Yep.
of the background of that being white or sort of yellow in the software that we use to create these things, you could change it any color you want. So the background for the guitar neck, the fretboard is yellow, red, green, whatever. And then that way I just lay right next to it another piece of paper, and they see that the same fingering pattern has the same colored fretboard on it. So once you learn one, you know it. You just need to know the order in which, well, the order is always the same. You just need to know that the starting point is different.
Yes, that's very cool, and it's a bit like all the modal shapes. It gets confusing when this is the Aeolian mode, and it's like, well, yeah, kind of, but anyone could be the Aeolian mode, right? So I mean, we won't go down that road, but that type of thing. So that's very cool. You take away that confusion of numbers and them being different from major and minor pentatonics and all that sort of stuff.
Well, not to go down that road, but I started trying to explain there's an Aeolian mode, but there's also an Aeolian fingering pattern.
Yes.
So that pattern can fall anywheres within some other mode too.
Yeah. Just to
Yes,
exactly.
I mean, because that's it's exactly the same thing. So the cool thing that you just brought up, though, talking about the modes, not that we're going to go down that rabbit hole, but fortunately for us, the modes have all unique names for the finger patterns.
Mm.
That's where I came up with the idea of, instead of calling it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, think about what a mess it would be if it was mode 1, mode 2, mode 3, mode 4, all through 7.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would be much more difficult to try to explain to somebody what's going on. Fortunately, even though they got funny names, at least they have unique names for each finger pattern that you play on the. And so that's actually where I got the idea of this was,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
take away the numbers, and it'll actually hopefully make it clearer to somebody. So anyways.
Yeah. Cool. Just a comment or a question here, because F sharp is correct. Is this Willow? Because F sharp is a relative minor of A major, that's correct. So if you're taking A minor down 3 frets, it's and the chord behind you is an A major chord, then you are playing A major pentatonic. But it is could also be F sharp minor, which is the relative of A major. So yeah, that is correct. That's the thinking behind it. And the opposite is true too. So if, say, Mark, let's say we're on an A major chord, right? We're already in A major and we want to do some rhythm fills. So the same is true. If you play, let me think here for a moment. I am confusing myself here now. But if we take the minor pentatonic down 3 frets, it becomes major. If we take the major pentatonic up 3 frets, it becomes minor, right? So if I am playing, let's go E. Let's change the tonality here. So if I'm playing some sort of little fill based off the pentatonic in E major, then I can take that and I can move it up 3 frets, and it becomes, or it could become C sharp minor. I think I'm just going to confuse people here.
Yeah. I think up 3 frets or down 3 frets is actually the much easier explanation. So if you're playing in E major, if you just go this way 3 frets, then you're playing in C sharp minor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Scratch what I was doing.
So wherever you are, if you're major, you go this way 3 frets, and now you're playing in minor. If you're here and you're playing in major,
and you go up.
so if you're playing in major here, this is minor. If you're playing here in minor, that's major.
Clear.
I am totally confusing myself too, and I know that we both know what we're talking about, but I can't express it articulately. You know what I mean?
I just started off on a trailer and I'm thinking, oh, this is just going to confuse. I know what you're saying, but for anyone out there who's just completely confused now, and that's my fault because I set you up there, Mark. I'm sorry about that. Just take the minor down 3 to make a major, and you are good.
Yes, you are good.
You're going to end up in the same places. Just know whether you're in major or minor first, and then do so. So if you're in E minor, then yeah, you could use E minor pattern 1 up here. But if it's E major, you go, well, okay, here's E minor. I'll just move that down 3 frets, and now you're in major. Okay.
Well, the cool thing about position 1 minor pentatonic, when you use it as the 5th position major, when you move it down 3 frets, is typically it's the first pattern that people use or they learn. But because of the box type pattern, it actually is really, really easy to create phrases. It seems like it's a little easier than position 1 major. So if you're really comfortable playing that box pattern, you could still play it as long as you play it in the right location. And, obviously your tone, your root changes. But the fact of the matter is all the same licks and riffs that you actually play in your minor key sound great in the major key too, as long as it's in the right place. They sound great. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and if you're very comfortable playing in that pattern, then go for it. I mean, I know a lot of rock guys that's their go-to thing. They've been playing for years and years and years and years, and they've had a lot of time, and they go, I just feel like I can phrase better in that pattern, so I use it more. So there's no shame in that either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't have to be an expert in every single pattern, because some of them just aren't as easy to come up with cool phrases in, and others are. So you could gravitate to whatever makes you sound best.
Yes. Yeah, agreed. I mean, there's a hell of a lot you can do with just pattern 1, and so you definitely don't have to go learn all 5 shapes before you do anything with them. Just take pattern 1. There's a world of stuff you can do with that. And
people have made careers on pattern 1. They've made a whole career on it. So, I mean, there's no shame in just sticking with pattern 1. Your options will become greater, but if, it's not necessarily more notes, it's how you play your notes. If you actually spend your time on playing your notes better, you don't need anything really.
Yeah. And I think the other thing here with our rhythm fills and the whole concept of this that I often see is not, you go to YouTube or somewhere and someone's given a lesson on fills and they'll show you a whole lot of cool fills, and here's one doing this, here's one doing that. This is in the style of Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimi Hendrix. This one's using sex, whatever. But it's and that's all well and good, and you can learn all these cool fills, but you've got to be able to put them into a chord progression, keep the chord progression going, keep your time, awareness of time. So I think a big, really foundational thing with this is awareness of time and building your sense of time. So a good, and this is basically what you were doing in the beginning, Mark, which was great, and that is just get used to coming in and out of a chord or a chord progression, maybe a single chord to start with, so it keeps it simple. So let's say you've got like an E chord and you're strumming, so set up a time. Don't just strum randomly and play in a sort of rubato way. Set your sound up and set your time up. Let me just set your time up 2, 3, and 4, and a 1, 2, 3. And what you want to do is come in at different points with a fill, but come back to your chord and keep that groove going the whole time. The most important thing is keeping your time. So we're not trying to do any fancy fill or anything like that, you could almost just, whatever you do, you can almost just, I kind of think of it as like a placeholder. It's holding the place for where you can then throw in some little cool riff or rhythmic variation of what you're doing to make it sound a bit more musical. But the purpose of this is not to come out with cool sounding fills, it's to build your sense of awareness of time and being able to get back to your chord and know exactly where you are, because it won't always necessarily be on the one. But you might start like that. So for example, I'm going to play the E major chord. So I will be doing little fills, based on the E major pentatonic. So again, E minor is at the 12th fret, move down 3 frets, there's E major. So I've got my spot. So I might start with 1.5 bars on E and half bar, 2, 3, and 4, and a 1, 2, and a 2, 3, and 4, and a 1, 2, and a. Right, so I'm just doing 1.5 bars on E, half bar fill. But I could change that. Maybe then let's say if I do half a bar on each. Now, this isn't necessarily going to sound really musical. This is okay. It's for the purpose of the training of your awareness of time and being able to come in and out of the chord and fill at different points. 1, 2, and a. So half bar E and half bar fill. Right, now I'm doing probably a little bit more on the fills than what you need to. So if you could keep it really simple, because again, your focus is on time. You can make it sound better later, right? Or work on that separately. So even if I did it more simply with the fill. So, and this time I'll do a bar on each. Okay, so I'm going to change it up again. So first off, it was a bar and a half chord, half bar fill. I was just doing half bar chord, half bar fill. Now I'm going to do 1 bar chord, 1 bar fill. Okay, so I'm changing up the mix, if you like, but I'll keep it much simpler this time, more sort of placeholder stuff. So what did I say? A bar on each. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then 2, 3, 4, and a 1, 2. So I'm just really playing on the beat with the fill. 2, 3, 4, and I know there I can put in some little cool fill when I'm, more up with the time. But real simple. That was a bar and a half to a half bar that time. 4 and a. Now that's still pretty straight, and that's perfectly fine. A lot of the time they're going to be kind of the basic divisions there. You're either going to kind of be maybe filling a bar and then going back to your chord, or you might be half bar or whatever. But you can then sort of branch out to just randomly at any point switching between the two, but keeping a sense of where that one is, where that beat is, and where the one is. So let me see if I can just demonstrate that quickly. So that'd be like 1, sort of set up your groove first. 1, so you've got a good feel of where your tempo. 2, 3, and 4, and a 1. So you just want to randomly come in and out. So 1, 2. 2, 3, and 4, and a 1, 2. 2, 3, and 4, and a 1, 2, and a 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and a 1, 2, 3, and 4, and a 1, and a 1, 2, 3. Right? So you're keeping the groove. Now, at some point there, I know I missed a beat. So it is challenging to do. And it's not that you're necessarily going to be back and forth sort of like that. That's a little bit sort of, random sounding. But the point is being able to keep your awareness of the beat, your sense of the beat as you're switching between rhythm and lead. And that's just on a single chord. You could then bring in a chord change, so it's more to compute. This is all something you will build over time. I'm not saying do this in 5 minutes, but you need to spend some time on the awareness of the beat and being able to switch between rhythm and lead playing at any point within a bar. So that is something that I think is really important too, when you're playing with this sort of stuff. What do you think there, Mark?
I think you are absolutely right. I think starting off super simple and just um, knowing where you are as far as number of beats that you're supposed to be playing is really important. So the idea of what you were doing, where you were playing just two beats of a chord and two beats of a fill for your measure or your bar, is actually the best place to start, because then you're really going to get a great sense of timing. You don't have enough time if all you have is two beats and you can get like two or three notes in. You don't have enough time to do any more. But it really ingraining the pulse and just becoming so familiar with where is the one. And if you always keep going back to your chord on the one, if you do that enough, you're just going to instinctively know where it is. I think a lot of people try to bite off more they can chew, so to speak, right in the beginning. If you keep it really super simple, like my example earlier, it was two beats on a chord, two beats on a fill, two beats on a chord, two beats on a fill. That's the best place to start. And just a little tip: if you're playing guitar and you end up at a party someplace and there's a guitar in the corner and someone says, "Oh, play something," this is the perfect thing that you can do. If you've got a good handle on it, you're playing single notes in between chords and everybody thinks that you're this great guitar player. You could be playing something very complicated, but it's not impressive. This is actually very impressive. So this is a good little party trick too. Not only is it cool, but it's a good little party trick. And the cool thing about that is nothing has to be rehearsed. If you're comfortable with playing a few beats on a chord, playing a few single notes, it always is going to sound good. Always going to sound good.
Absolutely. And I think with the timing thing, a metronome's a good thing to work with. If you set up your metronome and
Metronome.
you put a little accent on the first beat, then you can kind of hear where it is at least, and when you're off. Or you could go to YouTube or similar and search up a single chord backing track, or in some software you might have many ways you can do it. Just have a single chord playing, and you can just let that chord play and come in and out at different points. Just ways that you can get yourself or train yourself to feel where that beat is. It will become second nature to you. But it's often the focus here when you check out things on fills and so forth, and that's fine. I mean, a YouTube video is not going to be able to give you all the pieces, but it's very important, the timing thing. So you've got to I would spend time, what we're talking about here, very simple little notes, so forth. And then you could, dedicate other parts of your practice to learning some fills, some cool fills. Look at stuff like Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimi Hendrix. They've got the very classic, all these double stops, which always sound really nice.
Oh,
All those sorts of things are great. Maybe just quickly here, Mark.
I got a quick question for
Sure.
you. There's actually an interesting comment that was given, and I don't know if you saw it, but Matt, I can't read the letters that are there. Matt D. He said, "Can you give us an example of what you did a few minutes ago?" But Travis picking, he was talking about my example of playing a chord for two beats and then playing a fill for two beats. That came in after I gave that example, and then we went off, with you talking about what you just did, doing the demonstrations. But I think he's looking maybe for a little finger style chord and then maybe some single notes and then finger style. Is there any way that you could do that? Because I think that would be cool.
Okay. Okay, let me just take this in. Can you show us an example of what you did so what you were doing, what you talked about, but Travis picking? Yeah.
I think what he was getting at, instead of strumming the chord, can you just Travis pick for a few beats and then change to some single note fill?
Sure. I mean, you could. Right, we've got a Travis pick in here. Right, Travis pick in. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4 on 1. Maybe a bit bluesy. You know, that sort of thing. So you could certainly do that. Absolutely. That's just integrating two different concepts. That's pretty cool. It's yeah, absolutely, you could do that.
I think he was more or less looking for what's the sound of it rhythmically,
Sure.
and then having fills. So
And I mean,
I thought that was pretty cool, because that's the way I interpreted it. And I'm like, oh well, that would actually be pretty cool. So maybe I bring it to your attention.
yeah, well, thank you for that. That's cool. And Matt, if that is along the lines, that's great. If it was something slightly different, you can certainly say so. Just quickly here, Mark. So we're talking. It's beyond the scope of a single stream like this to go so deep. But if we're thinking, okay, we've got pentatonics, that's cool, and that alone could service this type of playing, period, and that's where you stop. But what about something like triads? I mean, triads are great because we can sort of follow the chord change a little bit more, right? Rather than playing the general keys. So can you speak?
I mean, we could do that too. I mean, you could also take each individual note and turn it into a triad. So you can come up with a single note kind of fill that's not that complex or fast, and you could turn those single notes into your triads and have it more chordal sounding. I mean, that's how, like, Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones. Is he playing lead or is he playing rhythm? I don't know. It sounds kind of like both at the same time. You know what I mean? So, but you could definitely you could do fills as chords as well. That's why the rabbit hole goes so deep. I think that's where people get lost.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great example. Keith Richards, always playing little fills and so forth in between the chords that he's playing. So yeah, triads are a great way. Really, really quick, because I know we're a little pressed for time here, but a really quick way if someone's thinking, okay, well, how do you do that? I'm just going to quickly give you something that you could do here. Let's say we've just got a chord progression that is E and A. All right, we're in the key of E, and we're playing an E chord and an A chord. Now we're in the key of E, so we could do our E major pentatonic stuff that we've been talking about here today, but we could take a triad approach, and the simplest triad perhaps would be the little 4-3-2 voicing. That's on the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd strings, and it's coming from the major shape, E major there, bar chord, root 6, and we can even just, and I think this is what Mark was saying before, even just the triad itself playing the notes separately. So by separately, I don't mean hold the shape and play the notes separately. I mean literally play one note of the triad, release that, play another note, release that, play another. Whatever sort of order you want to play them in, but it's a real single line, one note after another, not really ringing over the top of each other. And you can just play a little fill over the E chord, 2, 3, and 4, and a 1. A little phrase based directly from the E. And when it goes to the A chord, you then do the same thing, but over the A triad. If you go to that E triad, it's not going to work, because you're being very specific to the chord here, not in the general key. So when you go to the A, you want to play things and then you're back to the E, right? So you can just take the one triad shape, find both positions for both chords, and then go back and forth between those two to be able to address the specific chord there. Okay, that's what A very, very basic introduction to the triads, but essentially that's it. I mean, then you learn more triads and different ways that you could play around them and notes you can add and see how they fit within the context of the pentatonic scales. That's all, for further study, but that's a basic explanation of the triad approach there. Um,
Right on, man.
yeah, you got the
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. There's so many choices. There's so many options. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's why that's why people may get confused at times.
Yeah, yeah. There's always more fills, more riffs to learn. Um, there's nothing special about a rhythm fill versus a riff you might play in a solo. They're one and the same. You're just integrating parts of a solo, if you like, into a chord progression. That's essentially what we're talking about here. So, Mark, you have something that will be perfect for what we're talking about today, because if you want something to introduce yourself to this concept, you've got something that you can offer people here today, I believe.
Yes, I have an e-guide and it's totally free. It is exactly on this topic. It is the beginner's guide to adding lead guitar elements to your rhythm playing, and it addresses this particular topic in a very, very super simple, elementary way. It's using two strings, and there's audio examples of what it's going to sound like, what to play in between every chord exactly, all tapped out, and then what it would sound like all together. Of course, you don't need to choose the same exact notes, but it is so easy, and it's going to get you definitely started down this road if it's something that you're absolutely interested in. So I know we started off simply and then we got more complicated as we were talking. This brings it right back to the super, super basics. And it's actually may even be a little simpler than the way I originally explained and demoed it. And the good news is that it's a PDF file that you're going to get, and you can look at it as many times as you want and hear the audio examples as many times as you want. And you can go back over and over and over again, and you could really get a good idea of how to start doing this kind of stuff.
Awesome. That is great, Mark. And I've had a look at that guide. It's awesome. It'll give you exactly the start, from the beginning, and get you up and going with the rhythm fills that we're talking about here today. I've also got something here for you all, which is related to what we're talking about today. It's an ebook with audios embedded, so you'll hear all the examples. And basically, in this ebook, I take a single chord progression, one of the most common chord progressions in music, and I look at 5 different ways you could address that chord progression in a rhythm guitar context. One of them is using rhythm fills like we have today. So that is incorporated in this ebook here, as well as other approaches. Some using, I've got to remember now, actually I do address triads. So if you're not familiar with triads, it'll be an introduction to triads and how to play the chord progression or options you've got with the triads, but not just simply using triads per se, but in a sort of how can we use the triads to make it sound interesting rather than just use triads for the sake of using triads in a systematic sort of way. So it's 5 ways that you can address a chord progression that'll make it sound a little bit more interesting than just playing open and bar chords. Also, while we are here, I will put links in the chat for that. But in addition to what we're talking about here today, I do, for anybody interested, I've just popped in the chat now a link to I do have a video on my YouTube channel that takes you through this sort of thing too, a little bit more of an advanced level. So what would be great if you're new to this is check out Mark's book so you get all the foundations, and then you could check out that video, which will basically give you some cool rhythm fills, specific fills that you can then inject into your own playing. And if you sort of learn those fills or examples of them, and Mark's method that's laid out very clearly in his book, then you've got two good things there to set you up for our rhythm fills. So you can check those out there as well. Thank you so much, Mark, for being here today. I really, really appreciate it. Always great to speak with you and see you when I'm over there in the States. Also, just before we go, Mark, you've got YouTube channel, you're on Instagram, etc., right?
All the social medias, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just going to post Mark's. You'll find these links below this video too. So for all of you watching live today, this will be up on the channel. So I'll put all the links in the description below. It should appear on the channel almost immediately after we end the stream here. If it's not there, 5-10 minutes, check back. And I'll add links so that you can check out Mark's YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook, etc. Great resource for all things acoustic guitar. Well, not acoustic guitar only, rhythm guitar. So thank you, Mark. I hope you have a great weekend, mate.
You too.
And I really appreciate you being here, and I will look forward to seeing you in perhaps a stream down the track.
Yes, if not, possibly this summer.
Yes, absolutely. Well, yeah, a couple of months away. And also, thank you so much for everyone who's rocked up here today. I really appreciate it. I hope you've got something from that, and I, look forward to seeing you all in the next stream. Take care, guys, and we will see you very shortly. Cheers.